what does it mean to fear God? When we say that someone had the fear of God put into them, we mean that they've been terrified, made afraid of punishment or retribution, that they are made compliant for fear of the consequences. It's a usage that leans heavily on this common meaning of fear, a meaning that is negative, a meaning that is about a state of terror. But on the other hand, when we describe someone as a good, God-fearing person, we're not saying that they are afraid. Rather, they are pious and righteous and live in a state of profound respect toward God. It's a usage that leans on a more archaic meaning of fear, one that we rarely use in the world today. What does it mean to fear God? It is to be a state of reverent awe toward the divine. Now, the Israelites lived in a time of great fear, and not of the reverent awe variety. After Joseph and his brothers reconcile, as we heard last week, they all moved to Egypt to weather out the great famine that had settled over the land. And they stayed. Years passed. New generations were born. They grew old. They died. Soon, a new Pharaoh came into power, one who could no longer remember Joseph and all that he had done for the people of the land. A new Pharaoh came into power in a time of uncertainty and instability. What it was isn't recorded and truthfully isn't important. There's always something that comes along to make people anxious and concerned. There's always something that makes powerful people afraid that their grip on power might be more tenuous than they like to believe. So, Pharaoh pulled out the familiar tools of nationalism and xenophobia, choosing an easy scapegoat to channel the people's fear and uncertainty. Pharaoh said, "These Muslims will surely turn against us and terrorize us. We must stop letting them immigrate into our land, and we must stop letting them build places of worship in our communities, for the parking and the traffic will alter the character of our neighborhoods." Wait, no, sorry, that's wrong. Pharaoh said, "These Japanese Canadians will surely fight against us and undermine us in the war. We must send them away to live in internment camps. We must seize their property and their belongings and sell them to others." Wait, no, that's wrong too. I'm sorry. Pharaoh said, "These former slaves are great in numbers. And now that they're free, they'll surely rise up against us for all the evil and harsh treatments we have dealt them. We must keep them subjugated and prevent them from growing in wealth and power and stop them from taking their place and claiming their voice in society." Wait, no, that's wrong too. Sorry, these get mixed up in my head. Pharaoh did what we have always done, what we always do, and said, these Israelites have grown in numbers and will surely turn against us and fight with our enemies against us. We must oppress them. We must crush them with forced labor so that they lose their will to live. And we must kill all their baby boys. I wonder how Shiphra and Puah felt as they hurried into Pharaoh's court. It was unheard of to receive a summons like this, and this amount of personal attention from Pharaoh was a dangerous thing. Did it fill them with fear and trepidation to come before a man who is spreading so much hate and fear about their own people? Could they have imagined the horror of what Pharaoh commanded them to do to end the lives of the very little ones that they were charged with helping usher into the world? As they left Pharaoh's court, his hideous words still in their ears, did Shiphra and Puah even hesitate for a moment about what their course of action would be. It was a hellish and horrifying world. It was a time of great fear, and their reverence of God was greater. How did Shiphra and Puah come to have such a reverence of God? How did they find such faith? The truth is, we don't know for sure. This was a time before the Ten Commandments, a time before the laws had been written, before the prophets had raised their voices to call the people back into right relationship with God, before even the festivals had come into being and been given their names. It was an ancient time. We know little about what the Israelites' religious practices looked like at that point. But the reverence embodied by the two midwives, this sort of reverence is an orientation. It's an orientation that we develop and we discover through prayer and study. It's an orientation that we cultivate through mindfulness of God's tracings in creation and through relationship and community. What's more, it's an orientation that reveals the true nature of things, that Pharaoh and his armies and all the other powers and struggles of this world are fleeting trivialities before the majesty and awe of God. Pharaoh and all others who have taken his mantle on the world since then are like dry leaves caught in a swirl of wind, never to be seen again. Grounded in reverence of God, Shiphra and Puah did not hesitate to disobey the command of Pharaoh. The most powerful man in the world never stood a chance against the deep roots of their faith. Like those who come before us, we too live in a time of uncertainty, instability, fear. We've watched as climate change has made the residents of Yellowknife into refugees, forced to flee for their lives and journey through the wilderness. Closer to home, we have seen the smoke in our skies, felt it in our lungs, as wildfires bring destruction and devastation to Kelowna and cities and towns all over our province. And in a summer that has already seen 3 times as much forest burned than any summer before it, we are left in dread of future summers marked by smoke and loss and death. As if that were not enough, we're also facing a housing crisis that has made it so that ordinary people are increasingly unable to afford shelter for themselves and their families. It's bad here in Metro Vancouver, yes. Median prices for a 1-bedroom apartment exceeded $3,000 a month recently. But it's also bad all over the country. There are no more affordable places to live, and politicians seem more interested in blaming one another for the problem and more concerned with protecting developer profits than they are with actually addressing the problem. In the face of this uncertainty, instability, fear, the old and familiar xenophobic, populist, and nationalist answers abound. We are eager to find scapegoats upon whom to dump our collective anxiety, so we blame it on foreign investors, on foreign immigrants, on foreign oil companies, and on foreign countries' climate policies. Encouraged by our leaders, we assign blame everywhere else, refusing to acknowledge our own culpability, our own hands at work in the crises we face. And before the immensity of it all, we feel insignificant, unable to change or fix anything. We are filled with despair and fear. Remember Shiphra and Puah, my friends. When commanded to do the unthinkable, they did not hesitate to defy the powers of their world. We need reverence. In the face of a world filled with fear, our reverence for God must be greater. Seek the Lord and stand in awe before the divine presence. Grow in your reverence for God and all that God has brought into being. Then we will not fear or hesitate to stand in defiance of the powers of this world. We will not fear to create the goodness and healing and restoration and wholeness that this world so desperately needs. Because there is only God, and before God, nothing else matters. Pharaoh commanded the midwives to kill the children as they were being born, but Shiphra and Puah did not, because they revered and were in awe of God. When Pharaoh demanded to know why his orders had been disobeyed, the two midwives had the strength of character and quickness of wit to use his own words against him. By their actions, countless children lived and grew and led full lives, children whose stories we do not get to know. And Shiphra and Puah saved one child whose story we do know, whose story we do remember. And by their actions, they changed the world. And so can we.